Welcome to the Retro Adventurers. I'm Ben Collier. With me today is Jason Compton, and we've got a lot for you today. Starting off with a massive mailbag from all of you. Thank you all for writing in. And then we're going to get into our games. For our appetizer, we've got a marvellous adventure in the fifth dimension. And then we're going to head over to Invincible Island, which is quite something. I think we can all agree on. Jason, how are you? How are you doing?
Yes, I am Jason Compton. I can't remember if that's been mentioned in this version of the intro, but I am Jason Compton and I'm doing just fine. Yes, in keeping with the theme of us covering a type-in game today, we do have quite a bit of typing from listeners out there, listeners like you that have shared their thoughts over the past little while, and Ben pointed out it was time to catch up on some of that. So looking forward to that and taking a look at some early 80s classics, question mark?
Yes, very good point. I think the answer is classics, exclamation mark. Well, why don't we get into that mailbag?
Sure. Our first message today came from Robin Raymond, who has been featured on the program in a conversation before. He let us know that there's a brand new book, at least as of the time of writing, by Sean McClure called How to Design Adventure Games. It's about designing text adventures, but is not itself a programming book. Robin thinks it's interesting, thinks that you might be interested too.
Nice one. We've got a lovely email here from, I'm going to say Mikhail Pointier. So he writes in, he says, "Hi, I did not know about your podcast, but last weekend I was at a demo party. Amazing. Brilliant, dumbfounded there. Fantastic. At a demo party where one of the attendees was a big fan of adventure games and followed your podcasts religiously." I like that. He says, "When I showed him the game I released last December, he told me I should totally contact you. So not sure if you'd be interested, but there you go. Well, we are interested. It sounds absolutely fantastic, and we're going to give it a good old look. But for the time being, everybody, it's called Encounter Adventure. It's a reinvention of a game from 1983, and that was released on the 64, the Spectrum, the Atmos, and the Sharp MZ. Goodness me. So, yes, it says Encounter Defense Force, and that's at http://encounter.defense-force.org. So, Mikhail says he played the original game when he was 14 and learned English with it. And he tried adding graphics to it back then, but ran out of memory after a few days. I guess that makes sense. And it says 40 years forward. So he finally released his upgraded version of the game with graphics, animation, sound, and music. So it sounds like great fun, and I'll be having a look. And I'll direct you all who are listening to go and check it out as well.
Yeah. And Ben S., who has corresponded with us before, shared some thoughts about the one of the magazine episodes that we did that had that December 1980 issue of Byte magazine, which really in itself could have been an entire feature. And he says, two things that stood out for me in that issue. The review of Microsoft Adventure contains an editor's note interrupting the middle of the review. The editor interjects that Microsoft didn't mention Crowther and Woods in the game credits, but should have. The reviewer goes on to say that Microsoft placed heavy copy protection on the game. It was interesting to see in these pre-World Wide Web days of limited information how the facts behind this release were seemingly being pieced together on the pages of the magazine rather than having been settled before the first word of the review was written. Also interesting is how gently they treat Microsoft in light of these facts. I can only speculate how much of this gentle treatment was due to Microsoft being an advertiser and how much of it was due to the reviewer and editor politely giving them the benefit of the doubt. And yeah, the concept of, the public domain in software versus, crediting sources, certainly lots of versions of Colossal Cave, don't really credit those authors back. Mm-hmm. Lots of versions of Star Trek, which, dates back to the early 70s on teletype machines. A lot of those didn't, or even couldn't track the credits back because space was at such a premium. You weren't necessarily getting splash screens on these telling you who wrote them. Then Ben went on to say, the magazine opens with an editorial called "What's Wrong with Technical Writing Today?" As a professional science writer, kind of a cousin of technical writers, I read it with interest. Some of the tips come off as pedantic and obvious. Example, don't use big words when small words will do. A good example is utilize, a word that can almost always be replaced with use. And I'm going to interject as Jason here. It's interesting. That one seems to come around cyclically. I remember maybe 10, 15 years ago noticing an uptick in people using the word utilize rather than using the word use. And so interesting to see that it was being picked on in 1980.
I often have people phone me up and they're trying to sell me something. And they say, I would like to arrange a call with yourself.
Yourself, yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's a classic.
Yourself and utilize it. I think they're trying to make it more formal, but it ends up sounding more uncomfortable.
Absolutely. Well, it's interesting that we were talking here about the kind of the editor insertions in the UK, in the sort of gaming press of the 1980s and 90s. There was this tradition of snarky, kind of humorous editor insertions in the text, and I wonder if I think maybe it comes back to Private Eye in the UK, which does a lot of that kind of thing, and they would always be signed -ed, as in dash from the editor. Is that something that you would get? I mean, I'm thinking of Crash, Amstrad Action, things like that in this country. Is that something you see in the States?
No, I know what you're referring to. And yes, I think it also is a characteristic of, more humor leaning or maybe, more informally leaning publications. Although you'd also see it in places like short story magazines where the editor was kind of this all-powerful, being and would sometimes interject his opinion, in something, letters or I don't know about, maybe even, Joseph Campbell might have in footnotes and stuff like that, but certainly, in other people's features, that would sometimes happen. Yeah. So definitely a known thing. I haven't read enough Byte to say for sure whether that was characteristic of the publication. The other thing that I pointed out in corresponding with Ben is that, of course, in the more modern era, kind of early in my career, in the 90s, you'd probably get the article emailed back to you with some, hey, can you fix this up? And today, of course, we're going to do it in Google Docs or some other shared document format. So the editor's insertion isn't as necessary anymore. It's something that the editor and the writer, can kind of, coalesce to a point on. But it was a little bit different back then when the point may have come up, during layout, and it's like, well, too late now. We're in the process of typesetting it, so we'll drop this in now. Let me just wrap up with what Ben said. Apart from pointing out that he joined Blue Sky just to follow us. Thank you very much, Ben, and we encourage others to do that if you haven't already. But he also said, after reading this editorial, I reflected on how most of us are writing more than we did before computers and cell phones became commonplace. While some people may have issues with texting vernaculars and grammatical errors have certainly not gone away, I think most of us are better and more sophisticated writers as a result. I think that is an interesting debate for another time.
We've got one here from David T. He's written to us and he says he says some nice things about us, which I'm not going to repeat. And then he said, this is on the Robots of Dawn episode. The game is a bit different to the usual adventure. I thought you'd make more of an inquiry aspect rather than typical puzzles. The Apple interface is pretty annoying when I tried it, Matt Wright. He said he'd never read that book. Good, well done. I found the Asimov detective books a bit dull by comparison to the likes of iRobot. Though in fairness, he always preferred P.K. Dick. I tell you what, I actually really, personally, I really loved the Asimov mystery books. So the what they called the Black Widowers, where you got all of these kind of very clubbable men together in a room, and one of them would come out with a mystery, and they'd all have to solve it. And they were great. There were about 4 or 5 of them in the books, I think. Have you come across any of these, Jason?
I remember coming across pastiches of those written by Janet Asimov and some of his other hangers-on.
Janet Asimov.
Yeah. Not my favorite writer.
Not your favorite writer?
No, she ranks well below Isaac Asimov, who is also not one of my favorite writers. But yeah, I do remember some pastiche short stories of that gang. I don't think I've read any of the full novels. So if one wants to follow the Ben Collier path, what would you recommend as the starting point for those novels?
Oh, any one of them, any single one of them. They're I can't. They're all. it's a bit like the titles, the naming of the Pink Panther films. You sort of they've all got the word Black Widower in. So if you just type Black Widower and Asimov, you'll get all of them, and then choose one. They're all good fun. And I'm sure I'm going to get lots of angry emails from people who spent hundreds of pounds on Black Widower books and ended up loathing them. So there you are. Buy at your own risk. I should just add that David T. We responded, and he came back and said I think I mentioned Iron Maiden and Power Slave in relation to one of the, which game was it? Was it which game was it? The pastiche of the pyramid game.
Don't remember.
Anyway, it was. He says that recently he went to the Glasgow Hydro to see Iron Maiden. Well, David, I can announce that I went to the Manchester Co-op and I saw them too, and they were bloody great. So I'm with you there. Okay, over to you, Jason.
Yeah, last item from the inbox. Leo from Hit It With a Hammer wrote and said, love the podcast. I've been with you right from the start. He picked up on our recent mention of a desire to play The Guild of Thieves by the infamous Magnetic Scrolls outfit. That's my editorializing, not what he said. I wanted to point out that a group of them are playing it right now on their weekly stream entitled Hit It With a Hammer. It's kind of a merger of some new people with Dead Flesh Retro, which we covered very early on, and I think when they were covering the game Fish. Also, they got a nice 3-page write-up in Pixel Attic magazine, which is pretty cool. That text adventure crew out there got a 3-page feature in a print publication. So for those that are interested in a kind of a let's play playthrough with Guild of Thieves, then Hit It With a Hammer is out there for you, and we'll link to them in the show notes.
Fantastic. Well, that's it for the mailbag. We do have some news. I think you'd struggle not to have seen this if you've been living under a rock for the last last couple of months. You will have failed to notice that we've had a couple of really big retro computer releases. So first off, the first one to launch, I think, by about a week. Was the Commodore 64 Ultimate. So this is Christian something or other. I can't remember his surname.
Simpson. Christian Simpson.
Simpson. And he goes by Perifracted, and he's got this retro recipes channel, and he somehow has managed to buy the cursed rights to Commodore, and has essentially he's worked with some people who'd created some FPGA Commodore kit. I think that's the way this works. And has come out with a new Commodore, which is an FPGA Commodore. So it's 99.99% compatible with the original. It's all hardware emulation, and it's got a whole load of wonderful things like HDMI and SIM cards and all that sort of jazz.
Yeah.
He's running it. He's selling it online at the moment. Jason, sorry, you were saying.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out, and we do a lot of coverage of this as well on This Week in Retro, so if you want to see and hear me talking about this with other people, swing over to This Week in Retro for that. But yes, this is basically a mashup of 3 products that, 2 of which have shipped, one of which it's sort of an offshoot. But yes, it's the Ultimate 64 board as created by Gideon Schweitzer. He's been working on his C64 FPGA implementation for many years now. It is excellent. Just to clarify, you can certainly do bad implementations in FPGA. This is not that. This is an exceptionally good Commodore 64 implementation in FPGA. So basically, this is just a board, the Elite 2 version of that board with a slightly funny hat and a couple of different physical specs. And it'll have a different firmware menu and stuff like that. But so that is well-established tech. Plus, you're getting a new case. Plus, you're getting a new keyboard, and that's the element that has been a project for a while. The other revision of it, I guess, hasn't shipped, but
it's micro switch, right?
I don't recall what the switch technology in there is, but and the point being that like you could get these FPGA boards. I actually got mine just before they announced this product, and it really is one of those, for a few dollars more, you're getting the case and the keyboard, which are things that are a little tricky to come by these days in any sort of new old stock or decent shape kind of way. So yeah, 64 Ultimate with the Commodore branding, and he's recently announced that yes, they've completed their acquisition of the the slate of trademarks that this Commodore BV company had been holding on to. There are other claimants out there to the Commodore name in different territories, so this is going to be a saga that unfolds. But for now, the folks that run Commodore.net are asking you for $300 or more, depending on how it's configured, and they will ship you at some point in the future a new Commodore 64 FPGA implementation. Yes.
I should say I've bought one, and I was convinced mostly by the mellifluous tones of Christian.
Game recognizes game. There you go.
Yeah, I mean, I like to think that I can do a little bit of the old honey dripping from time to time, but he's got quite a voice. So on to the next one. The third version of the ZX Spectrum Next is out. So they released this, and I was thinking, gosh, everyone's going to spend all their money on the C64 Ultimate, and perhaps a little cheekily they announced. I don't know if this was before or after, but they rather cheekily announced that they were going to include a C64 core. Which just sounds like heresy to me if you're putting it in a Spectrum case, but there we are. So they're releasing this. This has been. I've got versions 1 and 2. It's a marvelous machine in a case by Rick Dickinson, sadly departed Rick Dickinson. And I was thinking, it's just going to be the kind of the last dregs of people who didn't get the original 2. It's completely eclipsed the first one. I can't remember. It was on something like 1.6 million. In purchases, or whatever you call it on Kickstarter, when we last looked, and it's going to run for another month. I think this is going to be massive, and it's really great to see more people joining the scene. I am tempted to suspect that an awful lot of those people are just people who bought the original 1 and 2 version and are buying the third one because they're nutters like me. But we'll see. And anyone who buys this, it can't be a bad thing. And it's wonderful to see these machines, the Spectrum and the Commodore, getting these new FPGA versions. I've always been really annoyed by the dodgy emulator ones, the C6 or the C64 and the Spectrum, because they're it's not the real thing. And this is much more like it. I'm just hoping for a BBC one, Jason.
They do have a lot of stretch goals out there, some of which are declared and some aren't. But yes, it does seem that if every £250,000 or so, they're committing to ship some new core or other. So we'll see.
I'm in a case, the whole thing. I want a BBC. I want a big BBC kind of, what do they call it? Looking like it was designed by a blind Bulgarian bricklayer, as they say in Micro Men. That's what I want. I want one of those. Brand new one of those. Yeah. I've got one last thing. It's not on our list. Okay. I'm going to mention it. I've been mucking about with. This was in the last damned episode. I've been mucking about with agentic coding, and I told an AI over a couple of weekends ago. I told an AI this isn't really retro adventurers, but whatever.
But this is Ben's LLM
it's of interest.
Column,
Come
yes.
on, there you go. We'll do it. And I pointed it at the original source code in MAME for Nemesis. I don't know if anyone remembers that. It was called Gradius, I think.
Oh, sure, yeah.
This ran on some hardware. It was the GX400, not to be confused with the GX4000. That's a very different thing. The GX400 Konami hardware. And I thought, well, let's see what this thing can do on a system that is almost completely undocumented. And I was amazed. We were able to get sprites, bullet firing, keyboard control, all that stuff working in a matter of hours. So I think there's going to be a really interesting effect from AI and agentic coding on the retro scene, because you can create development environments for retro hardware stacks in a matter of hours with very little input. And then when the AI finally gives up because it gets too complicated, then you can step in and start doing your own stuff and building your own code. So good fun. And if anyone fancies writing the first ever text adventure for the GX400, get in touch with me. Right. Okay. Should we go on to our games?
Let's do it.
So, Adventure in the Fifth Dimension. What do we know about this? So, this was by Brian Moriarty, and that's quite important because Brian wrote rather a few important games, a little bit, perhaps a little more important and more complex than the adventure in the fifth dimension. Brian was responsible for Trinity, Wishbringer, Beyond Zork, and a few others. So this is quite an interesting thing. I played this on the Atari. I don't know what else it was available for. Do you, Jason?
Yeah, I'm not sure what it's been ported to since, but this was published as a type-in game, and it comes in both a basic and an assembly module, and it's in Analog Computing Magazine issue number 11. That was the April-May 1983 issue. So yeah, this is essentially an Atari exclusive as initially devised and published. And note that Brian Moriarty, he's all over that issue of the magazine. He has 2 large product review roundups in addition to this game. So he was, kind of part of the Atari, the analog, ecosystem.
Fantastic. Yeah. So what's it about? It's about aliens stealing the Declaration of Independence. This is the scenario. The Declaration of Independence kept at the Library of Congress. Apparently, I wouldn't know that. Not American. In a closely guarded display case, in an atmosphere of inert gas, I'm now reading straight off IFDB, to preserve its integrity. Apparently one afternoon as the tourists are going past, these 5-dimensional aliens are able to reach through the bulletproof glass, snatch the Declaration of Independence, and vanish without a trace. So apparently you're a top-notch private investigator, rather like the guy in Robots of Dawn, hired by the government to retrieve it, and you must search Washington for clues, find a way to the alien universe, and get back the Declaration of Independence.
Yeah. So national treasure, but 20 years earlier and in text-only form.
So, did you find the Declaration of Independence, Jason?
I did eventually. I do have some questions. I do want to say this was relatively compact. You could run it on your 16K Atari 400 if you really wanted to. My first question is, because it describes the 5-dimensional fingers. How did we humans? How did we perceive that 5th dimension? It's a question that's never fully answered.
No, I mean, better pictures when you don't. Better picture on the radio, right?
Yeah. I did notice a typo right away. It says press start to being new game instead of begin. Oops.
Oh well, there's no delete key. That's you probably didn't bother to change it.
No, well the start's not the problem. It's the being.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. I get what you're saying. No. That's the Apple that doesn't have a delete key.
I couldn't find the delete key on this. It's probably the dodgy. It's probably the dodgy emulator on the on archive.org that I was using for this one.
Okay.
What did you use the same thing, or were you?
No, I used a local emulator.
Oh, much better. Yeah. No, on this one, as it was our appetizer, I thought, it's only the appetizer. So I went on to archive.org, and yes, doesn't seem to be mapped properly. So I was stood there, kind of furiously tried my backspace key a few times, and then discovered I couldn't, which was a damn nuisance. But it's quite a nicely structured game, isn't it?
Yeah. A little bit more about just getting to it. There's another note that says, don't try aborting the game with the break key. And of course, this is a reminder of all those different 8-bit machines that commonly had one or more keys on the keyboard that were essentially a screw up what you're doing key. And they were just sitting there. Sometimes they'd put a little protective plastic around them, whatever. Sometimes they wouldn't. It's shocking how common that was in the 8-bit era, and how even as people were trying to productize these, nobody was like, maybe we shouldn't do that. Maybe that will be more trouble than it's worth.
And they put them in places that are easy to slip onto on some of the worst machines.
I did like the copy of Analog that's scanned on archive.org has remarks in blue pen from the reader next to the listing saying things like, wow, and uh-oh, and so forth, which was pretty funny. There's another remark that's written in there that kind of casually explains away some of the sloppy code and tries to make a reasonable case for why the game isn't encrypted, even though it's going to create some spoilers for those typing it in.
Yeah.
And it was really intriguing to have that assembly language portion that you would enter and compile I would occasionally see some hybrid listings in some magazines, but at least in the Commodore 64 world, they switched pretty quickly to anytime that you had, machine language stuff to enter, it was either just in the form of, alphanumeric data statements or just straight hex codes pretty early on. So this is like readable and documented, but it's more work and you would need a compiler. But even at that, the listing doesn't seem too terribly long. It is doable. But yeah, so we, of course, in the modern era, we can just download this and play it. But at the time, it would have been typing it in. So this is a windowed interface that, if you've played a Scott Adams adventure or some of the other ones, that will feel pretty comfortable. I thought that the different kind of stacks and stacks were a little distracting. I know they were trying to show off the text windowing flexibility. There was a note about, it's using all of the very unique features of the Atari, and by that point the Commodore 64 is out. So enjoy that while you can. But yeah, like you can certainly assume more text windowing flexibility than on an Atari than you could like on an Apple that doesn't really have that amount of control over the text on the screen.
So in terms of I'm looking at the map at the moment. I mean, it looks like there's probably about 28 rooms. But of course, you would think an adventure in the fifth dimension. We've played a game with a hypercube in before, haven't we?
Yeah.
And this isn't quite as insane as that.
No.
This might be in the fifth dimension, but the various dimensions that you end up visiting are quite easily accessible through a fairly ordinary northwest, southeast type layout, right?
Yes, but you do get some changing color backgrounds and so forth when you're in a different realm.
It's pretty cool. Yeah, it changes color when you. So basically, when you go through these various hyperdimensional, is it the hyperdimensional relay? Is that what it's called?
I didn't make a note of it.
The transdimensional duct.
Of course.
Here we are.
Which is found where? Which is found where, Ben?
Which is found where? The transdimensional duct is found in the... Let me remind myself.
Oh, come on, Ben.
Where was the transdimensional duct?
The best place to stage adventure games.
Of course. I know, I can remember now. Yes. So, of course, the transdimensional duct is in the bog. All the best things in adventure games appear in the loo. And it's a truism that Jason will be glad to confirm that we play hundreds of these. We'll play hundreds of these games, and the one thing we'll learn is that all the best games put all of their best features in the lavatory. In fact, if you were to train an AI on thousands of adventure games, you'd get a game that had lavatories in it because all the best ones that elicit the strongest reactions and the greatest gameplay.
This is our version of Can You Pet the Dog, isn't it? Does the game have a toilet?
Yes. Yep. Absolutely. But I don't know what you mean by Can You Pet. Is that...
that's a trope. Inventory video games by, is there a dog in it? And if there is there an ability to pet it?
Oh, I see. I've never heard of that. Anyhow, things I liked... I like the fact that you had to give a tea bag to a British soldier to make him go away. I thought that was good. That was nice. There was another one of those funny passes where the first four letters. Yeah. The first four letters of a noun were used to identify something. So if you got the first, as long as you didn't mess up the first four letters, it would recognize what you were talking about. That was helpful.
Yeah. That did have, so I did make a note. I was like, oh, good, I don't have to type all GD day. Thank you. But there's an upside and a downside. I'll give the downside first, which was that there, as you're trying to assemble pieces of things, I thought that the word attach would make sense, but no, that actually gets interpreted as attack. So that's not so great. But the good news, this being the Ben Collier Toilet Games podcast, is I'm pleased to inform you that you can gain access from the fire escape with the command break wind.
Oh, of course you can. Wonderful. Oh, that's marvelous. That's absolutely lovely. Thank you, Jason.
Yes, I did like that, like the solution of that puzzle, which involved a stone, that like there was enough attention paid to detail that moved the stone into the next room because it had gone through the window.
That's
I was
very
like,
clever.
oh, that's, these are, it's not like masterclass stuff, but it was, more than you might expect from a small, compact little game.
Yeah, and of course the parser was simplistic, which you'd expect at this time. And so you don't say break window with stone.
Right.
It just checks that you've got the stone when you try to do it.
Yeah.
So that makes sense.
I had started to wonder if there was no way to lose the game, and then I dropped the cube in the room with the force field, so there definitely was.
Ah, yes, absolutely, yes. Yeah. Yes. So you've got various things you have to do later on to avoid that situation.
Yeah.
So no, that's good.
But yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, good game, and enjoyed it, and nice. What's the word? Small but perfectly formed.
I think it was reasonably well assembled. Yeah, I think some of the verb confusion. I wonder if a few extra lines of code for more synonyms might have been helpful. Like for example, there's a bit where you have to do a transaction and you can't give the bill, even though give is understood as drop, but that doesn't get you what you need. You have to choose buy instead. Yeah. There was a throw stone puzzle later that worked differently than breaking the window did. So I thought that was a little, it's like you established one way that moving a stone worked and then switched to another. And then if I understand the end of the game correctly, are we still carrying a deadly incendiary device in fourth dimensional Earth while, because it's like, okay, I guess it's safe to drop it somewhere there's not a force field, but you still have it?
Yeah.
Is this going to be a problem? Was this setting up a sequel? I'm not sure.
Huh. Very good. Excellent. Well, good game. Strongly recommended. Jason, same.
Yeah, I think certainly recommended. Not just if you are a fan of Moriarty's 3 Infocom games that Ben mentioned. His later credits, by the way, we didn't touch on those. Probably best known a little bit in the post-Infocom era for the games Loom, which he was the lead designer on, as well as The Dig, that he was one of the writers on. But I don't think you need to be a Moriarty fan, and certainly at Infocom and beyond, he had more room to do storytelling for sure. But this is a fun little romp. You can save the declaration and know that the world is safe for now from the fifth dimensional menace.
Nice. On to our next one. So, Invincible Island. This is quite a game. This is written by a chap called Pete Cooke, not Peter Cooke, I assume. Jason, what do you know about this game or this author?
Yeah, if only it was that Peter Cooke. Yeah, it is Cook with an E, and he is variously credited as Pete or Peter, depending on where you look. This is a release from Richard Shepard Software, where Peter Cooke released a few text adventures early in his career. He's also got Urban Upstart, Upper Gumtree, and The Inferno listed on IFTB, and then he goes on to a really long career in a wide range of games. So not unusual to see people kind of springboard their career. But yes, the game challenges us. Can you find the 7 parchments of Zaro and their mystical meaning? So
yes.
We've got quite the quest ahead.
Interesting that they would refer to it as mystical. I'm not entirely sure that the meaning was mystical, but it says, what does it say? So you join the game, it says, welcome to Invincible Island. And it does it in this kind of bit like the football result. As it goes, welcome to Invincible Island. In this adventure, you're an explorer stranded on the remote island of the Zaro. Your only guide is a letter you received from a Dr. Chumley several months ago, in which he said that he believed the islanders even, had hidden a massive treasure somewhere on the island. And with that, you are dropped into the game. Now, Jason, I would assume that naturally you would have used the ZX81 version.
I played the Spectrum version, which was a little tricky to get into. It was probably my fault, but the code business to load that wasn't something that I'd encountered. Now, I mean, I've played a fair number of Spectrum games before, and I just hadn't run into that. That slow type out of that introduction, that really grated. I was pleased to have the option to accelerate things. However,
So what were you on, Fuse?
no, I was using ZSAR UX, and I think I need a new emulator because it makes you hit escape to get out of the pop-up menu, but frequently the game would grab that escape press and it would go into some sort of reset. So I spent a lot of time.
Oh no!
Yeah, like because you click on the screen and then it brings up the emulator interface. So yeah, I probably should look at Fuse then.
Yeah. I started off with I'd had this thing called Retro Virtual Machine. I think it was called Retro Virtual Machine that does the CPC as well. I already had it installed, used it on there. That has no speed up, and you'll remember from playing it that if it's on 100% speed, it's painful.
Yeah,
it uses something approaching vector graphics to draw the graphics. I'll get onto that in a little bit.
Yeah.
And then it writes the text out terribly slowly. Yeah. I do wonder if maybe it was compressed. It's very slow. I had to speed it up to 1,000%, which made I don't know if it was that made Fuse crash, but I had a couple of strange crashes, but mercifully right at the beginning, and then once I got into the thing, it was absolutely fine. But yeah, it's interesting. So to give you an idea of what it looks like, it's the Spectrum game. I didn't do the ZX81. I'd imagine that would just be all text, but it's a split screen game. You've got on the top, you've got a sort of letterbox image of what's going on, and then at the bottom you've got a description as per your regular text adventure. What did you think of the graphics, Jason?
They were fine for a 1983 Spectrum game. Nothing to really write home about.
So they use the same sort of vaguely vectorish way of working that a lot of the similar games.
Yeah.
Like Twinking and Valley, it draws the lines and then fills them in with color.
Yeah.
I was quite surprised by how much in the way of graphics there was.
I did reflect on that because we talk about that a lot, and you and Dave have mentioned on multiple occasions, it's perfectly fine to not have a graphic for every location. I'm like, that's weird, but yeah. So it did make an effort there, and I did make a note to myself that the opening graphic was nice enough considering that it was all single load. I think that the effort made to illustrate it was good. The actual enduring of it, I made a note here. I ended up on quadruple CPU speed to make the experience more livable.
Yeah, that's right. I was 10 times, and that was still went fairly slowly on 10 times. It's interesting little game, really. Very very characteristic of itself. It's lots of very odd things going on. Should we? I've got a whole list of them here. Jason, do you want to go first?
As far as I'll mention some things about the parser, kind of the gameplay experience. Unlike the Adventure in the Fifth Dimension, which was a 4-letter parser, this seemed to just be, we're going to match the word, which means you're typing out examine all the time, all 7 letters. Some amount of compound commands would work, but not constructions like unlock chest and open it. It would just take that as an open chest. You can't read a thing, so you have to examine it. It was unfortunate. I didn't quite understand how the scoring worked. You could ask for your score and get told, your score is a pathetic 0 or whatever.
Yeah.
But then, like when you started scoring points, it suddenly became 10 points with no fanfare, no real explanation of how I got there. So that surprised me. I when I tried at one point to give food, I got just a generic parser error of what question like that seemed obvious enough. You can't talk, you can't ask. I've got a flavor note. We'll get to that after you. It doesn't understand use. So I've got a few other notes about my quirktastic things, but let's hear how you found the Quirk Fest.
Yeah, it had that same sort of strangeness that we saw in good old Jacaranda Jim, where things weren't necessarily, they didn't really follow necessarily. So So we had a native, natives. I don't suppose this game would be made these days. One of the natives would give you a phrase book.
Mm-hmm.
So they obviously had it was rather peculiar that they would have had a phrase book with a English to Zaro translation. Rather odd. There was some good. I thought there was a lot of the puzzles though made sense and they were fun. I'm thinking the potion where that caught me out. I thought that there's a bit here where I'll spoil everyone's fun here. You open the chest and a snake jumps out and then you die within a few turns. And I was thinking, oh gosh, what can I do to stop the snake from jumping out?
Yep.
And of course the answer was you don't. You just take the potion afterwards that you find like two locations away.
Yep.
So yeah, that caught me out. So yeah, good puzzle, well done. So my minuscule intelligence failed to grasp the idea of an anti-venom. And then the canary, that was another wonderful little touch where where if you go into an area that's dangerous when you're traversing the mines, the canary will keel over and warn you. So that's quite good.
Yep.
I like that. I thought the canary was fantastic. How about you, Jason?
Yeah, what you were saying about the snake puzzle, right? That there being kind of multiple ways to get through that challenge, and it's not defeating the snake. It's just cheating death.
Yeah.
There were some quirky ways they had to solve things, like you can't open box with X, you have to break it. I thought that the use of the phrase book, however, slightly improbable. I did think that it added some flavor to the world because that, you're essentially, well, I made a note here. I said, it's like Night Orc Part 1, but instead of collecting rope, we're collecting parchment pieces.
Yes. Yeah.
So as you collect them, it starts to form this full document, but without the phrase book, you still can't read it correctly. So I thought that was actually a nice twist.
So you see, it's a graphical thing. So in the window that you're seeing all your locations with, each time you add bits of the phrase book, and it's a bit peculiar, or not the phrase book, the parchment. You pick up parchment each time. It doesn't entirely follow, but each time you pick up parchment, you see and you look at it, you see a more complete version of the parchment. And like you were saying, Jason, the if you don't have the phrase book, the characters are all garbled. With the phrase book, you get whatever percentage of the parchment, and it'll slowly fill in graphically on the screen, which is a great touch.
Yep. There were some things that I was a little thrown by, going down a pit leading to a valley. That really confused me. And I feel like I ran into that. There was a remake of Lost in Space on Netflix a few years ago. And I seem to remember a moment in the first episode where it seemed like somebody went down a pit and ended up in a valley. And I remember just being baffled by it, but I've never been motivated enough to go back to watch and figure out what happened. But I'm having similar
Beatles game
sensations here. And there's some other kind of navigation bits of weirdness. You're told about a solid door blocking the path, but the answer is you just go in. The command IN works just fine. At one point, you can end up on a rocky, sandy island that says just exits lead, and then it's just a blank space.
Yeah.
Which is when you have
and
that mechanic.
The command to actually the command to get there was that was cross.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not. I mean, assuming that maybe the inlay had the verbs in it. I don't know.
It did have some. Let's see, and it did have cross. Yep.
Oh, good.
They do use that.
So that would have made sense.
Yep.
That would have made sense. That made more sense in that context. A pagoda.
So you talk about the pagoda, and then I'll talk about the pagoda.
Okay, there was a pagoda. I mean, we're on this kind of remote island with these tribes people, and they clearly know how to make Chinese pagodas. It just seemed slightly sort of discontinuous.
My remark was, well, better a pagoda than a grotto.
Yeah, we like a grotto. We like a grotto, absolutely. It's kind of got Oriental theming on the case artists, hasn't it? So it's obviously that's where they were going with it. But
I mean, there's certainly a lot of we can see that architecture style on the cover. Yeah, I mean, a lot of these. There's an adventure. It's set in the jungles of Brazil or on an island or wherever. Do become a little bit of an excuse to we'll just drop in a little bit of whatever flavor we feel like having. So
yeah.
Did the sword come in handy? I think I have a remark here, sword question mark, and I don't remember why I made it. I played this a few weeks ago, but
I was trying to remember if I used the sword.
I don't think the sword actually does anything.
Recall using the sword for anything. That's strange. No, I don't recall that at all. Not sure. Don't think so.
Yeah.
Viewers, write in. I've done it again, haven't I? Calling them viewers. Great game. Very, very much enjoyed it. I was really, really impressed by the number of graphical representations that were in there. They were only repeated a few times.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot in there. They made use of a kind of rudimentary sprite mechanism, I think, to put in pictures of the locals, and things like huts and things like that would be repeated, and then they would use the old vector thing to. But it was great, and the only problem was if I was playing this on the original hardware, I would have been banging my head against the wall because it was so slow, and every location had its own graphic, which had to draw, and then I went east again, and then I went east again, and 5 hours later I'd arrive where I was trying to get. It would drive me up the wall, and I would have. I think that would have been for me. Maybe at the time it would have been a little bit of a turn off, but maybe not. I mean, if I was used to waiting 10 minutes for my games to load, maybe it would have been a fairly decent experience. What do you reckon?
Yeah, it would have been challenging to get through in real time, I think, because of those long delays for even just getting into the game. We'll leave loading aside. Kind of loading is loading. If it's 1983 and you're on tape, you've got loading time. But the slow type out of the intro, the very slow render. I don't think there was an option to shut off the graphics display, which sometimes you'll get in these games because they kind of know, somebody might be 40% of the way through and need to start over, so we'll let them do that. Yeah. It's not mentioned in the docs.
I remember the absurdly large number of options you had in Twin Kingdom Valley, for example. You can what's it? Show graphics every time, give long descriptions. Show graphics every time, give short descriptions. Show graphics and all that sort of stuff. There was none of that, but it's. I'd be interested to know if he used the same system to make his later games. So we've got Urban Upstart, for example, which I can't. It'd be quite interesting to see if I could have a look and see what that looks like. But it's again just a kind of another specky game. I don't think these were built for any other platforms, were they?
Some of them came out for 64. Yeah.
Oh, did they? That's interesting. Yeah. So I'm loading Urban Upstart now, actually, as we speak, and it's doing exactly the same bleepity 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 for the first page. So
it's author's trademark right there.
Absolutely the same engine. So I think if you're interested in this and you want to play a game that's not been spoiled by us discussing everything about it, one of these other games by the author might well be worth a go. So you've got Urban Upstart here, which basically it says Scarthorpe, but it's clearly Scunthorpe, and basically it's escaping from Scunthorpe, which is an interesting idea. And then we also have, as we mentioned, upper, the word upper, Gumtree. So it's a pun, and the Inferno, which looks like a game about. Goodness me! So this is a game about the devil.
Yep.
So there we are.
It says it's about the underworld. I would be interested to know if it is a literary adaptation worth our time. But I think that to me feels like the next one to explore as a little bit of a sideline in the bookware trend.
Yeah, absolutely, yes. Yeah, fantastic. Any last thoughts, Jason?
Nothing too specific on this one. Like I said, the parser is a little limited, but take a look at the inlay. They do use the space to their advantage. I did not use the well, it's not really an in-game hint system. It's a separate hints file. Did you happen to load that one up?
I didn't even realize it was a thing.
Okay. Yeah, the inlay says what load in help before or after a game.
I remember that now.
Yeah. It says we recommend you note down or print off the clues. No help can be given during a game.
Yes. And like you, I had the problem with the load file name, then the word code. And in actual fact, on IFDB, I think there were a few versions of this going around which are actually broken.
Okay.
There's a version that's called alternate, and if you download that one, it works. I think the versions that aren't alternate, or there's one I think called different. So the one that worked for me was the alternate version. So if you want to go and play this or play along with us, then try the alternate one. Otherwise, you'll probably find that the thing loads and then crashes, or you have problems with it.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot to note that down. I ended up with 1 tap file and 2 TZXs. I don't remember which one worked correctly, but I do have that alternate TZX that you mentioned. Yeah.
The one that worked for me was the alternate TZX, and the TZX, and the and the Invincible.tap tap and the Invincible Island different TZX. I think both of those just failed for me. So there we are.
Yeah. Anyway. If anybody does come up with a Derek and Clive text adventure, I would certainly like to see it. We might need to do it under a pseudonym for mid 20 or I guess are we mid 21st century now that we're pivoting out of the first quarter?
Right. Oh, that's a good point, actually. Yeah, mid 21st century. The on the Derek and Clive matter of things, I in my spare time, Jason, I'm a choral singer, and one of my choir master does a wonderful rendition of the psalm that they sing. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Religious singing.
It's religious singing. It's a religious psalm. Where they refer to a situation in which their grandmother had an unfortunate accident with her
Auntie Mabel. What she got caught in the mangle, I believe. Yes,
got something in the mangle. Yes. So anyway, there we are. That's I've heard many a fine ecclesiastical rendition of that particular psalm.
Herodotus. Yeah, sorry. I'll stop now before we have to edit this episode down. But
anyway,
Gospeler. Yeah,
indeed. So, great fun, worth a try, in my opinion. And give it a go.
I would say this is an episode I'm coming out of saying both of these games are definitely worth a try. Fifth Dimension is quick and cheerful. Invincible Island a little crunchier for sure. But definitely manageable. There is help out there if you need it. Should definitely take a look at those in-game hint files and see if those are helpful. But a couple of romps this time around. Nothing too heavy.
Yeah, good stuff. Right. Well, with that all done and the games recommended and the mailbag emptied until next time, it's time to say goodbye. And I'll see you all next time, and Jason, I'll see you next time.
Until next time, thank you very much, Ben.
All the best.
You've been listening to The Retro Adventurers, a podcast about classic text adventure games. This episode was edited by Nick Moffat, produced by Jason Compton. Please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts, and keep the conversation going on Discord, Facebook, Blue Sky, and Mastodon. The Retro Adventurers is based on a format originally devised by Ben Collier, Jason Compton, and Dave Hawkins.